Hey, Blair Bates here from Building Renovation LLC again. What we're going to talk about today is how to remove these broken bricks here so that we can insert and tooth in new bricks so we don't have this square hole that we're filling. Visually, there's this 3 wides thick. Building's built in 1910, 1911, straight line mortar, so a nice soft mortar to work with. It's approaching fall. We're only going to replace these 2 layers of brick here. And we have tie bricks also that are in this wall. And then we've got full bricks, but then we've got broken bricks. So we need to remove these bricks. A lot of specifications will tell us that we're not allowed to use a grinder to remove them. We have to do it by hand, by hammer and chisel. The problem with a hammer and chisel, if you can see the dust on top of this brick, and the dust down here, I'm beating the crap out of the bond of the remaining bricks when I'm just trying to remove this brick. So I have a hard time agreeing with that type of work. I would prefer to use a diamond saw with a HEPA vac because this is silica in here, which is a carcinogen. And if, oh heck, we've done this all our life. I want to see that guy in his 60s and 70s sitting on the back porch with the oxygen up his nose because he has lung cancer. The dust out of concrete, the dust out of mortar has silica in it because of the silica sand, and it's going to give you lung cancer in the end. It's an OSHA requirement, which is good for OSHA. Do it right or don't do it at all. So I prefer this is a standard keyhole saw for drywall, nice rough teeth. You can buy these in carbide, which would be a little bit more aggressive at the same time, but we're talking a $6 tool here. Now it becomes a little problematic is if I'm hitting the brick behind it, which here I'm not because they have placed this with an air void on the 3rd wide. So we have 2 wides of brick, an air void with a tie brick, which is here, every 6 courses it should be, and here, where we're tying the outer wall to the inner wall so we have a monolithic structure. Nowadays, when we do that, we use metal ties that get to corrode. Those old boys knew what they were doing. Okay, laziest guy you ever meet is right here. Not so lazy. We have to be cautious about the dust. I have a fan blowing on me right now, pushing the dust this way. That's referred to as an engineering control that OSHA says you need to do before you do anything else. If I'm going to wear a respirator, I have to have the proper fit, and it better be of a fine enough filter system that I'm not getting this in my lungs. But the first thing is to use an engineering control to keep the material away from you. I can also wet this down to reduce the dust, but then I have a mess over this carpet and everything else in this building. Now that's what you call damn lazy. Remove the mortar. So now I can go back with the saw to remove this fine layer here and here, possibly. And we're ready. As we lay our new brick up to here, now I can tooth one into here perfectly. I'm going to have to do a major pre-wet. Each one of these bricks, these are kilned bricks in probably a wood fire kiln when this was done. We've seen some bits of charcoal, etc. So each one of these bricks can hold about 10 ounces of water. First thing I look for and test for with this brick is I pour a little water on it. Does it bead up? And I don't want the bead of water just here. I want to pull it to the surface to find out that somebody did something on the inside of this brick to screw it up so it's not going to absorb moisture. But as you can see, it sucked it up pretty quick. I go to my mid brick and mortar and my outer brick, do the same thing. I have absolutely no resistance to absorption here. It's soaking right in, and you can see it's gone here. Now I'm not going to lay mortar in a puddle. I need to get the moisture suction taken care of initially, but I don't want this puddle here. It's going to dilute my mortar. Now we're going to have a wetter mortar. So if I'm going to lay my brick, I'm going to do this first initially at the beginning of my day, and then occasionally throughout my day as I work my way up. Because here, and like, let's say this one especially, I've got 3 bricks. That's 30 ounces of water this way, and every brick that's touching it above it and below it, we're talking gallons of water is what this will take before it's saturated. I don't want it saturated, but I don't want it to suck all of the water immediately out of my mortar mix, because then I have a hard time doing anything with it. If I have too much water, we call that a floater, where we set the brick down and you can't get it to set anywhere it's needed because it's just sitting here wallowing around in the wet mortar. Words of caution. We can make these sawzalls out of air powered, which is great, but if you have an oiler on your saw, that means as it's blowing its air, one, we worry about the silicosis issue again, but we're also adding oil to the brick, which is going to be a bond breaker, and it's going to become a floater, and all of a sudden we don't understand it. But with the dust that's in the air, as this fan continues to blow, I have less dust coming back through the windings, and then I kill my machine. The blade, this is just a rough saw blade. You can get these things. If we had a lot to do, I would get a tree cutting blade, a carbide tip tree cutting blade this long, and they sell them this long, and it really hogs it out quick. But speed is not what we're looking for. If I go too fast, too far, I'm cutting into the brick, I'm cutting into the mortar that I didn't need to replace in the first place. Do it slow, do it right. Practice doing slow. Use that handsaw when you're first trying to figure it out so you can get the feel of what's going on with this brick, the feel of what's going on with the mortar. You're going to hit some in the middle wise, especially brick that is softer than the mortar. And if you don't realize that, you're going to be cutting apart your brick without even knowing you did it. We'll have new masons that'll tell us, oh, this is crappy brick. Starts with an S, they don't say crappy. And the same with the mortar. And my response to them is go take a look at one of the buildings that you have built 10 or 20 years into the age of it and tell me how it's doing compared to, I'll tell you how this is going to do in the next 110 years, because I know I'm using the exact same material, trying to use the same process gently to repair this brick and to tooth the brick out. That's it for now. Okay, back to the basics here. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We get into algebra and calculus way further along. But if we don't understand the process, if we go directly to calculus, so we go directly even to division, we don't understand the answer. You know, you use your calculator and the number comes out and you hand it in. I've dealt with engineering students where they're going to the 5th decimal on the weight of a yard of concrete. Okay, it's because that's the number that was spit out. So the basics, using a keyhole saw. Nice rough teeth. You can get this a little more advanced, so we'll call this Addition Plus if you use the carbide tips. Either one works. But when I'm sawing out with this, I'm getting a feel for whether or not the brick is much softer than the mortar and I'm cutting into the brick. I'm getting a feel that I'm banging into something on the backside. Well, because this isn't a broken brick. This is a tie brick. This is like this brick right here. No, it's not. Okay, this brick goes through 2 wides, and then we've got the 3rd wide on the backside. So as we're using the handsaw, basic addition, we're getting a good feel for the mortar. We're getting a feel that there's something back here that I'm running into that I need to be cautious with if I'm using a more advanced, once I go to subtraction. So I know my brick, I know my mortar, I understand how things are feeling here. Advanced class, oh boy, now we got to learn subtraction. Carbide tip, regular saw blade, of a medium tip for woodwork. We can get the really advanced, the pruning tips that are carbide, but they're really aggressive. If you don't know your brick, if you don't know your substrate, we can clean these out very, very quickly and destroy more brick, destroy more mortar than we needed to do. So once we've learned addition, we go to subtraction and we can start removing. Much more aggressively, but I have to know what's going on here to figure this out. This is a broken brick, so now I'm going to end up having to take this one out, and that's fine, it was already pre-broken. But if I did this with a hammer, trying to knock it out with a hammer, I might be breaking more bricks around myself and causing much more work, and I'm the laziest guy out there. So we're starting with the basics and we're moving ahead. Multiplication, we can use an air-powered saw. Division, we can start using these electric grinders and cut out just the center piece. They sell us what are called tuck pointing blades now, which are wrong. They're 3/8 of an inch wide, so if you got a narrow joint here, you're going to open it up to 3/8 inch wide. You look at this building, everything varies somewhat. Even the line of where the brick is laid varies. So if we open up everything to 3/8 of an inch, that's not a 3/8 inch joint, that's 3/4, that's 3/8 inch. If we don't understand the basics, then when we move ahead further on, we're going to screw it up and not even know why.